Before we get into it, if you want the core lessons from the world's best leadership books delivered every week, hit subscribe and the notification bell right now. It takes 2 seconds, and it's the best decision you'll make today. Now, let's get into it. Does your team consistently underperform? Do you find yourself frequently frustrated by missed deadlines, communication breakdowns, or a pervasive culture of blame? What if the solution to every single one of these problems lay not with your team, not with external circumstances, but squarely with you, the leader? This is the provocative, uncompromising truth at the heart of extreme ownership. We are often taught that leadership involves delegation, strategic vision, and motivating others. But what if the most fundamental, transformative act of leadership is the absolute, unequivocal acceptance of responsibility for everything that happens under your command? This isn't about taking credit for successes. It's about owning every failure, every shortcoming, every misstep, without exception, without excuse. It's a paradigm shift that demands introspection, humility, and an unshakable commitment to accountability. This book challenges the very notion of blame, asserting that the moment a leader points a finger outward, they surrender their power to solve the problem. It argues that true leadership is about looking inward, identifying your own role in every challenge, and then leveraging that ownership to drive solutions. It's a philosophy born in the crucible of combat, forged in life-or-death situations, yet universally applicable to boardrooms, project teams, and every leadership context imaginable. If you want the core lessons from the world's best leadership books delivered every week, hit subscribe and the notification bell. Let's get into it. Extreme Ownership: How U.S. Navy SEALs Lead and Win is not merely a leadership book. It is a foundational text, a manifesto for accountability, penned by 2 individuals whose leadership credentials were forged in the most demanding environments imaginable. Its authors, Jocko Willink and Leif Babin, are former U.S. Navy SEL officers who led Task Unit Bruiser during the Battle of Ramadi, one of the most brutal and intense urban battles of the Iraq War. Their combat experience, marked by extraordinary courage and strategic prowess, provides an unparalleled foundation for the principles they articulate. This is not theoretical leadership. This is leadership under fire, where decisions have immediate, life-or-death consequences. The core problem extreme ownership addresses is a pervasive and insidious one: the human tendency to externalize blame, to make excuses, and to shy away from full responsibility for outcomes. This inclination, whether in a military unit, a corporate team, or a nonprofit organization, inevitably leads to poor performance, internal conflict, and a breakdown of effective command and control. Leaders who fail to accept complete ownership inadvertently foster a culture of finger-pointing and mediocrity, where problems persist because no one truly steps up to solve them. Published in 2016, this book swiftly became a landmark. Its impact stems from its brutally honest, no-excuses approach. It distills complex leadership challenges into a singular, powerful principle: extreme ownership. This principle, derived from the crucible of combat, offers a clear, actionable framework for leaders to improve performance, build cohesive, high-performing teams, and solve problems by looking inward first. It's a stark contrast to many leadership theories that focus on external motivators or situational factors. Willink and Babin instead pivot the focus entirely onto the leader's internal locus of control. The book's resonance has been profound and widespread. It is now read by a remarkably diverse audience, spanning Fortune 500 CEOs seeking to revitalize their corporate cultures, military commanders aiming to enhance unit cohesion, entrepreneurs striving to scale their ventures, senior pastors guiding their congregations, government officials navigating complex bureaucracies, and ambitious leaders across virtually all industries. Its universal applicability lies in the fundamental truth it champions: that the ultimate responsibility for success or failure rests squarely on the shoulders of the leader. The central argument is uncompromising. True leaders must take full, unequivocal responsibility for everything in their world, including all successes and failures of their teams, leaving absolutely no room for excuses or blame. This isn't a suggestion, it's a mandate. It's the bedrock upon which all other effective leadership principles are built. Without this absolute commitment to ownership, all other strategies, tactics, and motivational techniques will ultimately falter. It is a call to radical accountability, a challenge to every leader to look in the mirror before looking anywhere else. Let us now delve into the key lessons derived from extreme ownership, exploring how these battlefield-tested principles translate into powerful strategies for any leadership context. Lesson 1. Extreme ownership. The foundational principle of this entire philosophy is encapsulated in its title, extreme ownership. The core tenet here is that the leader is ultimately responsible for everything that happens under their command. This is not a partial responsibility, nor a conditional one. It is absolute. The authors assert, with unwavering conviction, that there are no bad teams, only bad leaders. When a team fails, when a project derails, when objectives are not met, the leader must, without hesitation or equivocation, look inward. They must examine their own actions, their own decisions, their own communication, their own planning, and their own training. The temptation to point fingers at subordinates, at external factors, at resource constraints, at market conditions, is a natural human inclination. However, extreme ownership demands that leaders resist this impulse entirely. By taking ownership of every problem, every shortcoming, every failure, the leader does something profoundly powerful. They gain the authority and the credibility to implement solutions and drive meaningful change. When a leader says, "This is my fault, and I will fix it," they empower themselves and their team to move forward. They demonstrate a level of accountability that inspires trust and fosters a culture of continuous improvement. This is the antithesis of victimhood. It is the embodiment of agency. Consider the crucible in which this principle was forged, the Battle of Ramadi. Jocko Willink and Leif Babin, leading their SEL teams, operated in an environment where mistakes had immediate, often fatal, consequences. If a mission went wrong, if objectives were not achieved, their immediate response was not to blame the SELs on the ground, nor to attribute failure to the enemy's tactics or unforeseen circumstances. Instead, they would rigorously assess their own planning, their own briefing, their own communication of intent, and their own training. This unwavering commitment to self-assessment, even in the face of intense pressure and danger, built an extraordinary level of trust within their unit. Their SELs knew that their leaders would always have their backs, and more importantly, that their leaders would always strive to improve the systems and processes to ensure future success. This approach empowered the entire team to learn, adapt, and ultimately to excel. Viewer challenge. When your team misses a deadline, or a project underperforms, or a critical objective is not met, what specific actions will you take to identify your own contribution to that failure? How will you actively resist the urge to point fingers and instead pivot to asking, what could I have done differently to prevent or mitigate this outcome? Lesson 2. No bad teams, only bad leaders. Building directly upon the first lesson, this principle states unequivocally that the performance of any team, regardless of its composition or context, is a direct reflection of its leadership. There are no inherently bad teams. There are only teams whose potential has not been fully realized due to deficiencies in leadership. Willink and Babin argue that if a team is underperforming, it is not because the individuals within that team are inherently flawed, incapable, or unmotivated. Rather, it is because the leader has not effectively trained them, has not communicated the mission and intent clearly, has not empowered them to make decisions, or has not established the necessary standards and discipline. A leader's attitude, their standards, their commitment, and their belief in the mission are all profoundly contagious. If a leader exhibits complacency, their team will follow suit. If a leader demonstrates unwavering discipline and commitment, the team will often rise to meet that standard. The leader sets the tone, the pace, and the culture. Imagine a corporate setting where a sales team consistently fails to meet its quarterly targets. A leader who embraces the no bad teams, only bad leaders principle would not conclude that they simply have a bad sales team. Instead, they would immediately turn the lens inward. They would scrutinize their own sales strategy. Is it sound? Is it clearly articulated? They would examine their training methods. Are they effective? Are they ongoing? They would assess their incentive structures. Are they truly motivating? Are they fair? They would evaluate their communication. Are expectations clear? Is feedback constructive? By taking ownership of these systemic issues, the leader can then implement targeted changes, whether it's revamping training, clarifying the sales process, or even adjusting their own coaching style. This approach transforms a problem of team failure into an opportunity for leadership improvement. Viewer challenge. Consider a persistent performance issue within your team, perhaps a recurring error, a lack of initiative, or a communication gap. How might you reframe this as a challenge in your own leadership approach? What is one new strategy, one adjustment to your own behavior or process that you could implement this week to address this issue? Lesson 3, believe. For a team to perform at its absolute peak, to overcome adversity, and to achieve ambitious goals, the leader must genuinely believe in the mission, the strategy, and, critically, in the people they lead. This belief must then be clearly articulated and passionately conveyed to inspire conviction and commitment in others. The authors emphasize that if the leader does not truly understand and deeply believe in the why behind the mission, they cannot effectively convey it to their team. A leader who merely recites objectives without internalizing their purpose will project a lack of conviction. This absence of genuine belief will inevitably undermine morale, erode commitment, and ultimately sabotage execution. People are not just motivated by what they're told to do, but by why they're doing it. They need to understand the purpose, the impact, and the value of their efforts. A leader's belief acts as the emotional and intellectual fuel for the entire team. Consider a church pastor launching a new community outreach program. It's not enough for the pastor to simply outline the logistical steps. We need volunteers for these shifts. We need donations for these items. We need to visit these homes. To truly inspire, the pastor must passionately articulate the spiritual and social impact this program will have. They must convey their deep belief in the transformative power of their mission, how it will uplift the community, provide solace, and embody their core values. By sharing this profound conviction, the pastor inspires volunteers and staff to fully commit to the vision, to invest their time and energy, and to persevere even when challenges arise. Their belief becomes the team's belief. Viewer challenge. Is there a current initiative, project, or goal within your organization where you sense a lack of full buy-in or enthusiasm for your team? How can you deepen your own understanding and belief in the fundamental purpose and value of that initiative? What specific steps will you take to communicate that conviction more effectively and passionately to your team, ensuring they understand the why as deeply as the what? Lesson 4. Decentralized command. In complex, dynamic environments, no single leader can effectively control every aspect of an operation. This is where the principle of decentralized command becomes absolutely critical. Leaders must empower junior leaders and team members to make decisions within their defined scope, fostering initiative, adaptability, and speed, all while maintaining overall strategic alignment. Willink and Babin explained that the human mind can only effectively manage a finite number of subordinates. When a team grows beyond this capacity, a single leader becomes a bottleneck, slowing down decision-making and stifling initiative. By pushing decision-making authority down the chain of command, leaders enable faster, more effective responses to dynamic situations. However, this empowerment is not a free-for-all. It is predicated on junior leaders and team members having a crystal-clear understanding of the overall strategic intent, the commander's intent. With this understanding, they can make autonomous decisions that align with the broader objectives, even when direct communication with the senior leader is impossible or impractical. This builds resilience and agility into the entire organization. Take the example of a complex software development project. Instead of a single project manager micromanaging every single task, every line of code, and every technical decision, the project manager embraces decentralized command. They empower individual sprint leads or module owners to make real-time technical decisions for their respective components. These junior leaders are given the autonomy to solve problems as they arise, to adapt to new information, and to manage their subteams. This is only possible because the project manager has ensured that every sprint lead profoundly understands the overall product vision, the key performance indicators, and the ultimate deadlines. This structure prevents bottlenecks, accelerates development, and fosters a sense of ownership and innovation at every level. Viewer challenge. Where in your organization or team are you currently acting as a bottleneck for decisions? What specific tasks, decisions, or areas of responsibility can you delegate with clear intent to empower your direct reports this week? How will you ensure they understand the overall strategic objective so their autonomous decisions remain aligned? Lesson 5. Prioritize and execute. In the fog of war, or indeed, in the chaos of a demanding business environment, leaders are often overwhelmed by a multitude of competing priorities. The principle of prioritize and execute demands that leaders identify the single highest priority task, focus all efforts on it, and execute it flawlessly before moving to the next. This process effectively simplifies the battlefield for the team. When faced with an overwhelming array of tasks, problems, and demands, the natural inclination could be to try and tackle everything at once, leading to fragmented effort and diluted impact. Willink and Babin advocate for a disciplined, sequential approach. Leaders must step back from the immediate pressure, assess the situation objectively, and identify the single most critical task that, if completed, will have the greatest positive impact or mitigate the greatest risk. Once identified, all resources, attention, and effort must be concentrated on its completion. Only once that priority is secured can the team shift its focus to the next most important item. This provides clarity, prevents overload, and ensures that the most impactful work is always getting done. Consider an entrepreneur faced with multiple urgent client requests, an internal system outage, and a looming investor presentation. The situation feels chaotic and overwhelming. An entrepreneur applying prioritize and execute would not attempt to juggle all three simultaneously. Instead, they would calmly assess which issue, if resolved immediately, would prevent the most significant financial loss or reputational damage. Perhaps the system outage is preventing all sales, or a specific client request is tied to a critical contract renewal. The entrepreneur would then direct their entire team to focus 100% on resolving that single, highest priority issue. All other tasks are temporarily paused or deferred. Once that critical issue is resolved, they would then move to the next priority, maintaining this disciplined focus. This prevents burnout and ensures critical problems are addressed effectively. Viewer challenge. Look at your current to-do list, your team's project board, or the array of challenges facing your department. What is the single most critical task or problem that, if completed or resolved, would unlock the greatest progress, mitigate the biggest risk, or provide the most significant strategic advantage for your team? How will you ensure that this specific task receives 100% of your team's focused attention and resources until it is completed, before moving to anything else? Lesson 6. Discipline equals freedom. This principle might initially sound counterintuitive. How can discipline, often associated with rigidity and constraint, lead to freedom? Willink and Babin argue that true freedom and effectiveness are achieved through disciplined adherence to fundamental principles, processes, and standards. While many might perceive discipline as restrictive, the authors contend that it is, in fact, the pathway to agility and adaptability. Strict discipline in planning, in preparation, in communication, and in execution builds a robust and reliable foundation. When teams consistently follow proven processes, when they communicate with precision, when they maintain high standards, they create a predictable and efficient operational environment. This solid foundation then grants them the freedom to react effectively and creatively when plans inevitably go awry, when unexpected challenges emerge, or when new opportunities present themselves. Without discipline, chaos reigns, and the team is constantly reacting in an uncoordinated, inefficient manner. With discipline, the team can pivot with purpose and confidence. Consider a disciplined financial services firm. They adhere to rigorous compliance protocols, have standardized client onboarding processes, and maintain meticulous record-keeping. While these might seem like burdensome rules, they create an environment of trust and stability. This operational discipline gives the firm the freedom to innovate in new product offerings, to explore expansion into new markets, or to invest in cutting-edge technology with confidence. They know their core operations are sound, secure, and compliant, allowing them to take calculated risks and pursue growth without fear of internal collapse or regulatory penalties. Their discipline in the fundamentals grants them strategic flexibility. Viewer challenge. Where in your team's operations, processes, or communication is there currently a lack of discipline that is creating chaos, inefficiency, or unnecessary risk? What one specific standard, protocol, or process will you implement or rigorously reinforce this week to bring more order and precision to that area? How will you communicate that this discipline is not about restriction, but about ultimately achieving greater effectiveness and strategic freedom? Having explored the foundational principles of extreme ownership, it is now time to translate these powerful concepts into immediate, actionable steps you can implement this week. These are not theoretical exercises. They are concrete moves designed to embed the philosophy of radical accountability into your leadership practice. Move 1. The daily debrief. Implement a daily 15-minute after-action review with your core team. This is not a blame session. It is a candid, objective assessment. At the end of each day, or at the start of the next, gather your key players and discuss 3 simple questions. What went well today? What went wrong? And most importantly, what could we, and specifically I as the leader, have done better? The critical element here is your personal ownership. As the leader, you must model the behavior. Be the first to identify your own shortcomings, your own communication gaps, or your own missed opportunities. By openly taking responsibility for your part in both successes and failures, you create a safe space for your team to do the same, fostering a culture of continuous learning and improvement rather than defensiveness. This debrief should be focused on process and improvement, not on individual fault. Move 2. The intent statement. Before assigning any significant task, project, or even a complex email, clearly articulate the why, the strategic intent behind it, not just the what. Too often, leaders simply issue instructions without providing context, leaving their teams to execute blindly. Instead, explain the objective, the desired outcome, and how this particular task contributes to the broader mission or goal. Once you have communicated this intent, ask your team members to repeat it back to you in their own words. This isn't a test of their memory. It's a critical check for understanding and buy-in. If they can articulate the why, you know they have internalized the mission, which is essential for them to exercise decentralized command and make intelligent decisions when you're not present. This simple act dramatically reduces miscommunication and increases alignment. Move 3. The blame audit. For one entire week, consciously track every instance where you feel the urge to blame an external factor, a circumstance, or another person for a problem, a delay, or a failure. This requires heightened self-awareness. Keep a mental note, or even a physical one. For each instance of this internal blame, immediately pivot. Instead of letting that thought take root, ask yourself, what could I have done differently to prevent or mitigate this situation? Was it a lack of clear communication on my part? Did I fail to provide adequate resources? Was my planning insufficient? Did I not anticipate this risk? This exercise is not about self-flagellation. It is about retraining your brain to default to ownership. By consistently redirecting blame inward, you reclaim your power to influence outcomes and identify concrete actions for improvement, rather than remaining a passive victim of circumstances. By embracing extreme ownership, leaders transform their organizations into high-performing, adaptable teams capable of overcoming any challenge. They achieve this because they understand that ultimate responsibility for success and failure rests squarely on their shoulders. This is the path to true leadership, true influence, and true results. If you found the insights from extreme ownership valuable, please take a moment to like this video. Your engagement helps us reach more leaders who are committed to excellence. And to ensure you never miss another deep dive into the world's most impactful leadership literature, hit the subscribe button and ring that notification bell. Next week, we're breaking down another essential leadership text, Start with Why by Simon Sinek, exploring how great leaders inspire action by understanding and communicating their purpose. Until then, lead with ownership, lead with intent, and lead with unwavering belief.